Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of DABCC TV. I'm very excited to have Kevin Goodman here from RTO Software. He is the founder and CEO over there and one of the mega superstars in the server-based computing virtualization world. And that being said, let's just dive right into this. Today we're going to talk about a new application, new solution you guys have at RTO called Virtual Profiles. And I'm really excited about this DABCC TV episode because profiles is definitely a big issue that we all facing in the server-based computing world with Citrix and terminal services, but also with the VDI world now that VDI is coming into play and people are all excited about that, and profiles is definitely a big thing. So what can I say, Kevin? I'm extremely excited to talk to you and excited to learn more about virtual profiles. So for my first question, as always, I need to ask you, who are you? And can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and, of course, RTO Software?
Be glad to, and thanks for having me, Doug. For the last 7 years, we've been improving the life of the network administrator and the users in the server-based computing world, and now also in the virtualization world. Really appreciate the opportunity to come here today and show you virtual profiles, because if you read our marketing literature, what you're going to hear is first they virtualize the servers, then they virtualize the applications, and now it's time to virtualize the data. But what that really means is what we're going to find out today here with our Virtual Profiles product.
Well, great. Well, let's just dive into that if you don't mind. Let's just talk about what is virtualized profiles.
Okay, so in general, especially in the situation, it applies in terminal services, it applies in Citrix, it's going to apply in VDI, and it's going to apply in Ardent as well. If you have users who are on more than one server but want to maintain their data, right now, up until this date, you've had a variety of choices. One of them has been roaming profiles. You've also had an opportunity to use mandatory profiles and then perhaps some logon scripts and log-off scripts to try to get you your data. Or in the case of Ardent, where they got their start from, so you have no flexibility and no data. Ardent's desktop situations where they sell to the universities, you make changes to that desktop, and when you log off, those changes disappear. Well, what you find out in the corporate world is people these days are not accepting the fact that they have to have a one-size-fits-all desktop and profile. And what they really want is to be able to have that configured to suit their needs. Well, if they're being load balanced across servers, or if they're going to be on a different VDI box each time they load on, different XP instance, or they have a single Ardent image that they're booting from, that means somehow we have to get them their data. And to date, no way has been a good way. Roaming profiles, as you may or may not know, have a whole bunch of issues associated with them. First one is slowness. Basically, what you have to do is store all your data up on a remote share somewhere, and as the person logs on, it gets copied down. There's also a chance for profile corruption going on there. If you're logged on two places at once, your profile, say your registry, your user settings in the registry, you have this situation where the last person who logs off, he writes the entire registry up, and what it does is it will write over any changes that were in previous sessions. Variety of things going on there that just make, as they say in the patent world, there still remains a need for a new solution. So when RTO took a look at it, what we decided was a few things. One, as you know, we're RTO, I co-authored with Brian the logon process chart. And if you've looked at our Pinpoint product, or for those of you who are listening today have seen our Doug Brown TV Pinpoint demonstration, you know that we go out and we look at everything very, very deeply inside what's going on inside a Windows box or inside an application. So we know all the steps that are going on in the logon process. And what we found out is a couple of things. One, the logons today are sequential, which means that when WinLogon authenticates you, after he authenticates you, he decides to copy down your profile. After he copies, and only after he copies down your profile, will he go and do any group policy optimizations. And only after he does the group policy optimizations, then will he go and run startup scripts, which mean at that point you can map drives one time at a time. And what we decided is there seems to be just a whole lot of inefficiencies in that process. And wouldn't it be great is if we could bring down the profile, but only bring down the data that you need. And that sounds like an easy task until you think of, which data do you need? Maybe you know, maybe you don't know. Wouldn't it be great to apply the group policies, the GPOs, simultaneously while you're bringing down the profile? Because you certainly can't be using the profile until you have your GPOs applied. And maybe simultaneously, wouldn't it be nice to do the same thing with mapping drives? Why does all of this, and printer creation, why do all of these things have to be sequential? If they are, they tend to be a long logon time. So one of the things you see with virtual profiles is the logon becomes very, very quick. And to do that, we broke up the logon so it's no longer sequential. And the other thing we did is we introduced what we're calling a just-in-time file system into the server, in which only the files that you need are brought down from the server.
Okay, well, great, Kevin. That's great. I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited to see this, and that's exactly what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and actually show this to everybody. So what I have cooked up for you guys is I have a web interface page, and we're going to go ahead and log into a Citrix server, and we're going to do this before. And this is my current web interface server, my current Citrix server that I actually use in my labs and here at DABCC. So I'm going to go ahead and log on in. Hopefully I'll type my password correctly. Go ahead and end this client detection process. And here's my application. So what I also want to do, though, is I sort of want to prove this to you guys. So as I press press to start my application, I'm also going to start a stopwatch. So let's go ahead and start that. Go ahead and start the stopwatch. It's a little bit off. I didn't do it right away.
Yeah.
But we'll get the gist of it. So right now it's loading our profile and actually downloading the profiles. Am I correct?
Seems to be stuck on your personal settings there, Doug. How big is your profile?
Well, my profile, I am a typical administrator. I'm a abuser of my desktop, and I have a folder on my desktop with a slew of my documents, and there's probably an ISO or two in there, and maybe even some iTunes stuff. But it took what? It took about 31 seconds. A little bit late to stopping that. So let's say about 29 seconds. How's that sound?
Yeah.
So let's see if you can do it faster than 25 seconds.
No problem.
Okay. So it would be really nice if you get it down to 10 seconds. But that being said, let's go ahead and install your solution now. Okay. I think we proved that this box right in front of us is there's no no magic to this. It's just that's the way it is. So
a couple of points, though. There might be some other ways to solve this, but we think that these days, and especially I've heard these trends, my son is just about to graduate from college, and he's been using a computer all his life. He's grown up with these things. From kindergarten on, he's been using computers. And so it's pretty difficult to tell people like this next generation how they ought to set up their box and how their personal settings ought to be, and pretty much what they want to store for their documents and stuff like that. One possible way to get around your situation here would be to remote off your profile and, let's say, put your My Documents up on a remote share and force you to go and get that data over the network.
You talk about folder redirection. That's very popular within the terminal services Citrix world, right?
Yeah, so people use it all the time. We don't recommend it for application data because some applications are pretty chatty, and you really don't want that network traffic. And the same is true for your My Documents. Do you really want to degrade your user experience to the point where in exchange for a quick logon, what you have is a poor user experience while you're using your documents?
Let's actually clarify that, Kevin. With folder redirection, we're not actually copying that folder down. We're actually just those contents are residing on your network, and every time you go out to get that data, whatever that may be, a file or what have you, you're actually going to a network share, correct?
That's exactly right, and not only you, every other user. So look at all the bandwidth that's being taken up by all these chatty applications going back and forth and getting the data. And we've seen it with our Pinpoint in looking at the logs we get for some customers. It actually reduces the user experience for the entire session as opposed to a trade-off of, in your case, having a reduced user experience at login. what we've decided to do with Virtual Profiles is get the best of both worlds. Why not have all the benefits of a local profile, but with the speed of and convenience of a profile that's been redirected?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So that being said, let's get this stuff installed, right?
Let's do it.
So what we're going to do is we're going to install this real quick, and then we'll give a demo to these guys. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay, so we're back. We've installed RTO Virtual Profile solution, and it was a really simple install, just very straightforward. And again, the profile solution that we have hooked up, it's just roaming profiles. Nothing fancy about that at all, just the same way you would configure it any other way, for any other environment. Nothing fancy at all. So let's go ahead and log on in. And remember, this is the same application I launched before. Not pulling any smoke and mirrors on you guys. And I need to get this all ready, so we're going to try to minimize this because this is going to go so quick. Right, Kevin?
Yep.
Okay, that's what you're telling me. I'll hold it to you.
The proof is in the logging.
The proof is in the stopwatch. Let's go ahead and click that. Click Start. We're in at 9 seconds, 9.6 seconds.
What was it before?
I don't remember,
34 seconds,
34
something like
seconds.
that.
I said I'd be happy with 25, right?
Yeah.
We're at 9 seconds.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
quite
there you
impressive.
go.
How did you do that?
Well, let's open up that stuff file right there, and
This is my abusive.
yeah.
Tons of
Why don't
crap
why
in
don't
here.
why don't you tell the folks why it took so long to log it on the first time? That would be it right there.
I am an abuser. I have a half a gig ISO of Office 2007 Enterprise, and so how did
How'd it work? I'll tell you right now. The fact is, you look, you think you see a ISO image right there. You think it's that big. The fact of the matter is, since you didn't bother to open it, we haven't bothered to download it. And if you go this whole session without opening it, it will never get downloaded. We'll save the bandwidth, and we'll save all that time that it was associated with copying it down. And that's why we call them virtual profiles. They're virtually all over the place when you need them. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't use them, why should they have been copied down in the first place? This enables you to store everything locally the way your users want it. This enables you to allow your users to customize their desktops, allows their profiles to grow bigger if you want them to, but you don't have to worry about it because, let's face it, on each and every session, you don't use each and every piece of data. Operations management people always tell me that you should eliminate inefficient processes, not optimize them. That's why the first thing we looked at perhaps was maybe what we should do is compress these profiles. That way when they come down, they'll be so much smaller and they'll come down so much faster. Well, the fact of the matter is, if you're not going to use them, compressing them is still a waste of time. Let's just leave them up there uncompressed and only bring them down when you need them.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I have to ask, since this is just a virtual, basically like a shortcut in many ways, although it's different than a shortcut because a shortcut is pointing back to the file share. This is not pointing back to the file share. But when I click on this, it needs to then download it?
That's exactly what will happen. It'll
so
download
now
at that
when
time.
I click on this, it's going to take that extra 20 seconds? Or?
Well, it'll take the time it would take to download it. That's exactly right. So what we're doing is we're trading off the logon times for when you're going to use this. And one of the things about virtual profiles is we can set it up as, and we have in here with certain files we know you're going to use all the time, so we don't bother virtualizing them. For example, your registry file itself actually comes down. But other files, the chances of you using each and every file in here will outweigh the fact that you're not going to use them will outweigh the fact that you're going to take a little bit of time to open this one when that time comes.
That's a fair trade-off. I'll give you that. What about do we have any capabilities to edit this? Maybe this is my ISO directory, something I go to every single second of the day.
That is quite possible, and similar to what you have in Softricity, where with Feature Block 1 and Feature Block 2, we can set it up so there's a most recently used list that we'll continue to bring down, so we can get smart about it and bring down the files that we know you're going to need.
Perfect. And just to clarify, when we installed this, we just installed the solution. We just, installed the package, went through the setup, we were done with it. There's no configuration needed whatsoever until we do some fancy things like what you're talking about there. But otherwise, there's just absolutely no management console. What would happen if I want to install a new user?
It goes the exact same way.
Yeah.
There's we're actually don't step in the front of that. And what our customers have told us is that they don't really want to buy into a new paradigm. They like using GPOs. They have their profiles the way they have them now. They just want them to work faster. So that's what we've done. We've gone in there and seamlessly under the covers figured out a way to make this work faster without making the administrator learn a whole new paradigm or convert over to a new way of doing things.
Very cool. Very cool. Wow. To maintain it, there's nothing to do also, obviously. Just install it and let it run. That's
and here's what we do in evaluation mode. So, our customers will know this is what we did. You can install it on one server in your farm, and then as users log on to that farm, use a product like Pinpoint to monitor those logins, or use the old-fashioned stopwatch if you want to, or just use the UBR, the user complaint rate. And, on this machine, they're saying, wow, things are going great. On this one, they're not so great. And, and you can tell the difference right there between the two boxes.
Very cool. Very cool. Kevin, many kudos to you and your development team. This is I've been around the Citrix world for quite some time, and one of the biggest complaints we always say here is that it just takes so long to log on. If you could speed up my login process, and you guys have definitely done that. That's quite impressive. You've told me about it. Obviously I believed you. I knew you weren't going to lie to me, but at the same time I didn't believe it.
You had your eyebrows raised. I saw you.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's very impressive. What can we expect? I have to ask competition. How do you compare against the competition with this?
There's a couple of competitors out there. There are those that want to be the end-all, be-all solution that want to convince you to do it their way. And, they may be right for certain situations, but like we said, a lot of our customers don't want us to change paradigms on them. And there were a couple other speed-up guys that go out there and do compression and do things like that. But like I said, why speed up a process that you can eliminate?
Yeah. Okay. And obviously, for my last question, as I do you've done the podcast show a couple times now. You've been on DABCC TV a few times. So my last question is future. What can we expect from you in the future on this? It doesn't seem like there's much more to do.
Well, there's a couple of things that we think are coming down the pipe there. And right now what you're looking at is on terminal services where we really think this is going to pay off is over in the VDI environment. VDI, using a pooled connection broker, you really have to have some type of roaming profile solution. And what we're doing is making it real easy. You imagine the situation where you have a bunch of desktop workers who are getting converted to a VDI solution. They're used to having local profiles, and now you're asking them to go towards a roaming profile type of solution. And for people that are used to local logins, they're not going to be real happy for that. So in order to get a VDI type of situation to work, we're working very closely with the vendors to make sure that when that time comes, the user's not going to know the difference between his old login on his local machine and his new login on a VDI RDP session.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, and definitely VDI is it's all the rave. Everyone's talking about it nowadays, and I don't know as many people using it yet, but 2008 is going to be, I think, the year of virtualization, year of desktop virtualization also. So that being said, wow, this is quite impressive. Very, very much blown away and sort of left speechless, and for me, that's sometimes difficult. So that being said, let's just go ahead and conclude this podcast. Kevin, I really appreciate your time. It's not a podcast, it's a DABCC TV episode. So on that note, I always like to give you the last word and give you the last word, and we'll call this one an episode.
Well, Doug, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Well, thanks again. So, and of course, thanks to everyone out there listening to DABCC TV. We have tons of other great episodes, and this is just one part in a multi-part series I'm doing with Kevin. And Kevin's actually taking his time to come on down to the actual DABCC studios, and we're sitting here side by side, which has been a very fun day, and going through all these neat technologies. So, what a blast. I've had just a wonderful time playing with some cool tools. So on that note, thanks everyone for making DABCC TV and DABCC Radio a success, and have a great day, and talk to you soon.